Hello, founders. Welcome to Startups.com. We are live. Fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by my colleague, advisor here at Startups.com, as well as a fellow founder, Ken. Let him introduce himself in just a moment. Before we continue, I want to invite everybody. We got a new question here because we had an amazing time last time just working through pitch deck and some other issues. If you are here and you want us to sort of bat around a problem and work on something for you, type in the problem or task that you're working on. If you want to share it with us, we're going to put our collective brain trust together and we're going to say, all right, how can we work on this and help founders? If you don't mind us doing sort of in public where other founders can also learn, make sure you type that in. And always appreciating our members from Startups.com. We'll always be able to ask questions. If you got anything that you want to ask, we'll prioritize your questions and your talk. Once again, we have people trickling in, so just want to put right in there, type in the problem or task that you're working on, use the FAQ or the chat, and we will interact with you and go from there. We are here for you. We're here to help. Before we continue along, just want to also share that this episode is brought to you by us at Startups.com. If you have not checked this out yet, check out the Startup Therapy podcast. It is fantastic. This is where Will, founder, CEO of Startups.com, Ryan, founding partner and CMO, Startups.com, sit around and they talk no BS about all the stuff that founders usually don't want to talk about. And I remember first time listening to this podcast, it was so refreshing. That's how I got here, listening to this podcast. I was a fan. And if you look at some of these topics, should our kids follow along, evolution or entry-level workers, assuming everyone will leave in year one. That's just one of these things. Was mortgaging my life worth it? What happens during acquisition? We talk about the dark side of acquisition. We all have these stories that aren't glorious, and we need to hear them. We need to have a discussion, dialogue. We want to create that environment for everybody to be able to come and have that conversation. Once again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, I'm going to say this one more time. If you have something that you want to discuss with us here, type the problem or task that you're working on, use the FAQ or the Q&A box, as well as the chat. We'll go back and forth. Before we get into those, I want to introduce my friend. I've been having so much fun getting to know Mr. Ken Gobble. Ken, introduce yourself, who you are, and what you're working on. What's your startup?
So, Ed, first, thanks for having me on. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you over the last 9 months as well. So my name is Ken Gobble, and I'm the founder of Rapport. And Rapport is a B2B sales vendor engagement platform that brings together buyers and sellers, but it's a different market because instead of focusing on lead generation for sellers, we focus on a customer first mentality. And we actually bring the opportunities to the sales organizations. So we're doing it in reverse from what people are accustomed to.
And what state is your product in right now?
So we are just completing our MVP, which we actually do have a working released MVP. So I guess we're entering our kind of our beta right now. And we also have a pilot program with a Fortune 100 company that has joined up with us to help tighten up the development and kind of find our future development as we work out the roadmap.
And here's your website. It's pretty much just a placeholder for people to come and sign up, which is really great. You can see how it works. We'll include all this information for everyone to follow up, as well as to contact Ken through there. But I wanted to talk about something that you just achieved, which a lot of founders with Startups.com looking for. You were able to secure funding. So give us the update on where you are as far as raising funds.
So I came to Startups earlier part of this year to, kind of help guide me. I want to talk about my previous journey because I was convinced that I had to raise like $2.5 million and have a seed round for my startup if I was going to get VC to ever pay attention to me.
Sure.
And one of the first things that you taught me, as well as Will and everyone, was first of all, you need to find your space. Where are you? And I was in a basically VC, friends and family, developing my MVP. I needed to really figure out how much money I needed to kind of get the, outside of my bootstrapping, what was I going to need? So we did solidify a $300,000 VC round. Initially, we had gone after about 500,000, but we felt that 300 was getting us started. And so we kind of closed the round off a little bit early with a single investor. And we've had some growing pains. We're new to this too. We did solidify a $300,000 round VC, kind of a friends and family type acquisition of funds.
Let's talk about what that process looked like, because you and I, we have gone back and forth on your deck, your value proposition, the languaging. What's great about you, Ken, is like you really attacked it. Like you attacked your pitch deck, went back and forth, and you really took ownership of it. So how did you get to the point where you had a pitch deck, you worked with us, and then get to that investor? What was that journey like?
Well, one of the things that really helped while we were working on the deck was you were coaching me as well as Will on keeping it very simple. Stop looking at it from me trying to, give 1,000 words about what my product's doing. Is keep it very simple and make sure that I tighten up the message so that the people that I do give this to can understand something in a very quick amount of time because they all have ADD. And so, once I had my deck kind of tightened up and everything, I went out to just everybody that would listen to me. If I knew somebody that, was, toward retirement, they had maybe some money, laying aside, they like to travel, they like to gamble, things. I talked to anybody that would listen to me. I also sent it out to, micro VCs, VCs. I started targeting statewide family offices. And it was actually a family office that I discovered with an acquaintance of mine through previous business, through a restaurant that I had opened, that led me to my current investor. And he is a first time angel as well. So we're kind of going through this whole growing thing together. But we started the journey, and he ran me through the gauntlet, interviewing with his corporate lawyer, with his, a friend of his that was an entrepreneur, another family member that has his own trust that he runs for a family office. I had to do 5 different presentations, and each one of those people had a different need to listen to my pitch. And one of the things that convinced him to invest in me was the fact that I could talk to 5 different types of individuals
Oh yeah.
about my organization.
Yeah.
So that right there, I would have never been able to do that had I not gone through the arduous task of whittling down my slide deck to be as simple as possible. And even as small as just like the key statements at the top of a slide.
Yeah.
It's not all they're going to read. And if they see something there that may interest them, they'll go to the bottom of the slide. But if you're only going to get that attention if you really focus on what is this slide about. That was another big thing that my old slide decks never had was, what's the title of my slide? I couldn't believe how simple that. I asked for the feedback from these people that I was giving the presentation to, and I was like, what caught your eye? And they're like, well, the fact that you were talking about, what's the problem statement? And I knew you were talking about the problem statement. That really helped me to understand that this is a very important slide to me. So,
Yeah.
so that was another great help.
I love hearing that, Ken. I appreciate you just being open and transparent about it, because I think sometimes founders, they listen to us, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, are these founders just thinking, well, Ed's just talking out of his ear because he thinks he's the expert? But to hear someone like you take what we teach and say, no, this is real. This actually works out in the wild. I was able to raise $300,000. That's great. How many people did you go through? How many contacts? How many emails? Like, what was that like?
Hundreds. Definitely not just like 100. I'm talking about, 300 or 400 potentials, just mass emails out to try to get to the screeners. I was on other boards, similar to startups, Y Combinator, things like that. I actually found my fractional CTO through Y Combinator, as a potential co-founder, but we focus more on that. But I was out everywhere. And until I got here at Startups, and you guys really kind of coached me on focus. Didn't have that guidance before, but I was able to really kind of target. First 200 were kind of like practice, Once I just kept sending it out. You actually told me to keep sending it out to people, and eventually it's going to catch someone's eye, and that was 100% factual, because eventually I was able to tighten up my emails and target the right people, and really go after those, the micro VCs. And I utilized the listing from Startups, with the potential investors and things like that. But you guys also coached me back into my friends and family round, which is where I really kind of should have been the whole time.
Yeah.
In that pre-seed, because I needed to get those initial investors there. Because the one thing I ran into when I was talking with the people that actually did respond, which I was getting maybe about a 10%, 15% rejection rate, which is actually good, because I was actually getting feedback that, no, we're not interested at this time, that type of thing. It helped me really realize that I needed to get my first investor before I got my second investor.
Yes.
And if you can get that first investor on, that's the most critical thing, because nobody wanted to be my first.
No, never.
And that was my biggest struggle. And I was just like, why can't somebody just give me, a $50,000 investment, out of my 500,000, just that 10%, that whatever the valuation is, why can't I get that? Nobody wants to be the first. Once you get the first one, then you have people that are like, oh, now I'm interested, because you're actually, somebody wants you, so you're a little bit prettier, you're a little bit more attractive to that individual. So that was definitely a big learning curve for me. But again, it's just getting it out there, and maybe it could be the time of the year that people are on vacations. There are so many moving factors. You just have to just stay at it and just keep going. So if I truly had to estimate, I probably did maybe between 500 and 700 touches with my slide deck. And I probably did 30 to 40 really good presentations before I actually got to my investor. And then he made me go through 5 or 7 more presentations before he said, okay, I'm willing to give you a check. It's a never ending, it sounds like sales. It's all about numbers. You have to put yourself out there. And now I'm actually going back out for a little bit more funding to kind of stretch this a little bit further into the round. I'm probably going to reopen that other 200.
Yep.
that's out there, just to have a little bit more diversity with the funding and to maybe get a little bit more efficient as opposed to my early roadmap. So it's just learning.
Okay, let's break down some of the principles here. Let's stay on this topic because you brought up some real gems. First of all, is that first pickle out of the jar. What all the founders, and I see the names of the founders, and I think most of you are raising money. Something that we can take away from Ken, and it's a general rule of thumb. When he says investors don't want to be first, it's totally the case. If an investor says, well, find a lead investor and then we'll come on, they're saying we don't want to be first. We want someone else to do the heavy lifting and do the due diligence, and then we'll come on board. What happens is nobody wants to be first, but they definitely don't want to be last. So as soon as you get that first one, everybody says, hey, can I follow on? And that's the reason you may want to give better terms for that first investment. I know founder, I think he's raised, last I checked, it was like $2.5 million. Probably $5 million right now. And he used Reg CF and he got a first institutional investor. He gave a 50% discount on his first $50,000. And that's okay. You can do that. You can have different terms for different types of investors because you can reward the people who come on first, right? Reward them, make them feel great, and you never know, they might come on again. Here's the second thing that Ken brought up, and I want all the founders to hear this, is investors will do all sorts of types of due diligence. I was working with a founder last year. She got into an angel group, and the founder said, we want to bring you 3 of our customers, and you try to sell them. And if you can sell them, and they set up all the meetings, and they wanted to know, and then they asked for references. Can we talk to your customers and interview them? We're going to bring an associate. They had them fly into a different spot, and they brought in another partner. It was complete crazy making. But remember, it's a team sport. I've never, unless I'm an angel investor, if I'm writing a bigger check than 5 figures, guess what? I'm going to involve as many people as possible. And so if you got like a technical aspect of it, I'll bring in somebody technical and say, pitch them. I usually had an investment committee and they would say, great, we appreciate the first thing, like the pitch deck. Now work out some numbers, get more pitches going. That's a socialization component. So what Ken just talked about is very true. You want to be ready. And that's the reason we put you through the gauntlet in terms of getting ready to be able to talk about it. With that being said, Ken, you just told me before this, you learned some lessons. So what are you learning? What are your takeaways? Founder beware stories so that other founders who are going to be watching this say, hey, I need to put that in the back of my mind and just make sure that I check that box because that might become an issue for me.
One of the things that I had mentioned is when I met my investor, first, I should have never stuck with one investor. And the reason why is because it's almost like it's more competition for them to invest, to be more involved, I guess, is kind of what I was looking for. But at the same time, they start getting cold feet. They need somebody else besides me as a founder to tell them this is okay. Maybe they don't understand. And I'll give you an example. My investor, he had started writing checks for us, and instead of doing a big lump sum, we agreed to doing monthly or bi-monthly investments. And we had mapped everything out. So everywhere that the money was going and being spent, so he could track everything to make him feel more comfortable and everything like that. And that was actually against your advice, and I regret doing that now. I should have asked for a little bit bigger check as opposed to letting him do more of a line of credit up front. That is something that I learned from. He started getting cold feet because he was like, he had never been an investor before. This is his first time to be an angel investor into anything. And so this is all new territory for him. I didn't bring that into, my perspective because I didn't think about him getting cold feet. I was like, this guy's going to make all my dreams come true. And we have the next 4 months mapped out for checks to come in and everything like that. And I didn't understand that, yes, I'm confident and I was hitting every one of my KPIs. I was ahead of the game, but he still started getting nervous by about that third check. And he just needed to see a little bit more progress for him, internally. But he's not a sales guy. So he doesn't understand if I'm doing a good job or a bad job. So he can't really relate. So all he sees is, well, we've got the website up and running. We have people that are signing up, but we don't have any checks yet. And I'm like, it takes 6 or 7, conversations with somebody before you ever get a purchase. Because just like I had to sell him, and I try to put that in his perspective. I'm like, how many people did you have me talk to before you committed to signing up for the investment? He was like, oh, we had at least 10 meetings. I'm like, exactly. It's the same thing when it comes to a company parting ways with their money. That's what selling is. It's building a good enough relationship to let them part ways with their money. And it takes time. So I kind of made that mistake. Like you said, I had given some leeway to him in what I was expecting for, like the size of the checks up front, kind of get him more comfortable. And I didn't realize it was going to be that quick, but definitely learned from that. And we're still working around everything. We
Yeah.
didn't have like a do or die scenario. But
Sure.
that was really, it was eye opening. And so if I have a lesson for the other founders is make sure that your investor is the right fit for what you need. You need
Perfect.
somebody that actually that has been a first time investor before, especially if you're a new technology or something like that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment and work with the founders. On one hand, I'm going to paint the spectrum. So we got this scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the complete neophyte, newbie investor. Total noob out there, right? No education. And then 10, you've got the savvy VC, or let's say the angel investor that's done like 10 deals. If you go further to 10, the standards are going to be a lot more stringent. They are going to be very, very anal with the due diligence, with all your KPIs, things like that, because they probably looked at so many different deals and they've lost on some, they've learned their lessons, they've got colleagues, they track the industry. So if you've got an experienced investor, well, they're great to work with, but the standards are going to be much higher. Then you go all the way back to 1, which is what Ken was working with, and you've got the investor that's completely new. Maybe, I like to use this term all the time, maybe they got into Bitcoin at $300 and now they could YOLO some money around, right? And talking to people who maybe just exit out of the business and you're going to ask them to roll it over, or they just exited out of real estate, they want to minimize their taxes. I just got that working with founders, like I got a bite, but someone wants to invest because they want a tax shelter, and here's what they want. And I was like, probably not the best idea to get creative that way. But they're going to have lower standards and they're going to be more open. So the more pre-seed you are, the more that you'll probably be focusing on these types of investors, but you have to do some education. And if you are in a high-tech startup, so Ken here, my man Ken, is building a potential unicorn. I know this. He knows this. We've talked about it. He's going to need funding to grow, and this is a major problem. If the investor's thinking, you know what, I want to own 40% of the company, and I want annuity checks, dividend checks to come in every month, and I want this or all that stuff, you may not have what we call founder investor fit, and that's what Ken is learning, and you, all of you, may be in that situation in different forms or another. But what Ken said was really great. Keep the relationship and learn to educate. And if you have people like us who've been there, seen there, done that, and say, hey, how about this? How about trying a convertible? Or how about trying this, etc. Then maybe we can come up with an example or a situation that's amenable to the investor. But all deals are creative, everyone. It is not a one-time thing. Y Combinator had it on lock with the safe because they're the biggest game in town. If you want to play with Y Combinator, you have to agree to do a safe. But believe me, only 200 to 300 companies go through Y Combinator every year, and only they're going to be using safe, and they're able to do that. All the other investors all over the place are going to have different types of terms, and they're going to try and negotiate with you. And let me give you another example. Peter Thiel, when he invested into Facebook, you might have thought, oh, he just wrote a safe. He didn't. He wrote a $500,000 check and said it's going to be worth 10% of the company, but only if you convert your first 1.5 million customers. That was the KPI. So Ken mentioned the KPI. Facebook didn't hit it. They didn't hit it. Peter Thiel decided to convert anyway, and his investment turned into like $3 billion, something like that. So all the deals are going to be different, and you have to get creative. So get ready. Now, here's the key, everyone. If you got questions about this, all right, got questions, use the Q&A box. This is the time to ask them. If you're dealing with a situation like this, we will go back and forth with it because Ken has some experience. Obviously, I have experience too. Feel free to ask those questions. Ken, what are some other learning lessons that you're taking away through this experience? Now you're going to open up another round. You want to diversify that investor pool. What else are you thinking? What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to touch upon what you were talking about, how you have to be creative with everything. The one thing that I did was, and this actually came from some advice that I got from Marc Underwood, who's one of the other founders here on Startup. He's actually acting as my chief legal officer, in fractional form. He told me, he said, Ken, you have the $300,000 commitment, but they only get the percentages when they actually pay, because we did kind of the installments. And so I actually protected myself, because if I find that I don't like the way that they're doing the investment, I can stop taking his money.
Yeah.
At any time. I'm not obligated to take any more of his money. And that was one of the, and you also gave me the same advice, is to be cautious. I didn't want to just give away 15% of my company unless I knew that I had enough of an investment that it was going to get me through my MVP and up to where I'm starting to scale the business. That was my entire goal, was to make sure that I had that commitment. So I built that protection in there. So if I feel that this guy is getting too much cold feet, he doesn't have a board seat, he doesn't have all these different things, those were all things that he could attain through investment. But if he doesn't get to that point, I don't have to give it. And so I did protect myself in that form. And I think, like you said, your advice that you're giving is what these people they need to listen to, because really y'all have been there and y'all have done that. And I didn't think about that, but when you coached me on that, I put it in the back of my Rolodex and it came to fruition. And so, but I still have 97% of my company left.
Yes,
I
perfect.
don't have 5 or 10% or 30% gone. So, but back to it, the one thing, and this is something that Will told me in the very beginning. He said, just because you get your investors doesn't make life any easier. It actually makes it more difficult.
Yes,
And
true.
by actually receiving the investment, now not only am I really beholden to that person to protect their investment, but also my own. I actually have to be a lot more balanced and structured in what I do in my day-to-day activities, because I'm not just a founder anymore. Now I'm the founder of a company with investors. And that's where I have to make sure that I'm staying with the coaching, like from you guys, and continuing to get great advice so that I don't fail. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things, and I'm pivoting when I need to pivot, which I had to do that in the last 30 days, because I had to pivot because I had a roadmap and we had it all mapped out, but I lost a couple of checks. And so I had to pause things, but I'm still operating in a forward momentum because I was prepared for that. If we had to pause the technical development of the product, I have enough of it, of my product and MVP ready that my customers can see it and they're comfortable with it. And that's why we call it an MVP, a minimally viable product. I got that piece done before I went to market with it. If we have to pause some of the fine tuning, if my customers truly want to be a part of this, because I'm more of a service than anything. I am not a technology. This is a tool to help me manage my time. And that's another thing that I realized in my time with startups is I'm not a SaaS product. I'm a service organization that has a SaaS and a platform behind me to help me perform to my capabilities. And so that's where I had to differentiate even my pitch. My customers was, I'm providing a service for you. We're going to match you with those vendors. We're going to take a lot of that workload off there. The technology is just there to help us.
Let's break that down, because I think this is very important, because I know there's some SaaS founders in our audience right now. Every company in the beginning starts off, if you're doing it properly, selling a service. And if you can sell the service and solve the problem, and you use technology to make yourself more efficient, then eventually you'll make the revenue to make your technology so efficient that now people don't have to be involved. It's very rare that you see a SaaS company come right out of the gate and have 100% completely automated software at 65% margin. Just doesn't happen. And there's this concept where it's like SaaS needs recurring revenue, and that's true. ARR, MRR, recurring revenue. But then there's another metric that a lot of founders don't realize, that investors look at and they get shocked, and that's net retained revenue, NRR. So how many people stay with you? But then there's this sliding scale of revenue run rate, which is different than recurring revenue, which investors will look at and they'll say, okay, we have 50% of our revenue based on, bespoke services and then delivered by hand, and then 50% is done with automation. And now, slowly, one's going to overtake the other. Investors are okay with that. In fact, I would prefer if founders went out there and they actually sold what they were doing as a consultation service first, learn the service component, learn how to deliver results, got the feedback, so it informs how they're building their SaaS, which is exactly what I did. In the beginning, when I had my SaaS, the one that got purchased, we interviewed that at Y Combinator, and then they gave me some great advice on automation, and then my number one customer bought us because they didn't want us to go to Y Combinator. So, okay, understand. It was great, good exit. The first thing that I did is I sold it as a service, and I did it as a black box, and I didn't even have the product. So what I did was I said, what's this service worth to you? And when they said $3,000, I said, done, I'll have it. And I pretended it was a black box, and I manually pretended like it was a SaaS. I manually created the outputs, manually created the dashboards. I was bleary-eyed all night with using Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and I faked it. And I learned to sell it, and that's how I got my number one best customer. And I made $135,000 selling the service manually before I even laid one piece of code, right? And, brought the developers on. So what Ken is talking about, everyone, it's okay to have your revenue split. And in fact, sometimes it's preferable. And that's how you're getting your customers right now, Ken, right? That's how you're getting the ones to show the social proof that, yes, this is something that people want to buy.
Yeah, and one of the other things, again, I hate to sound like a homer, but because of the other founders that I've met through startups, and it's not just you guys, it's all the other founders. I realized that I'm not building a SaaS. I thought I was, but I thought I was building an online community. Thought I was building this social media empire and all these other things a year ago. This is a 2-year project, and we just went live with it back in September. But I'm in a completely different area of what I'm performing because I realized that what I've done is I've kind of bottled up Ken Gobble. I've taken my 25 years of sales experience, and instead of me doing it for lead generation for sales people, I'm taking my specialties now to the buyers. And I realized that I don't need a SaaS to do this. I don't need a CRM system type interface. I need a tool that's going to help me bring the people together and just kind of standardize things.
Yeah.
So I'm building a tool, and it's the service that we're putting out there. And eventually the technology will completely automate. Just like what you said, we are growing our database. And once I have 25,000 companies across the world in my database, we will be that unicorn that's bringing everybody together through our methodology. But for now, just like what you said, every single person that I get is data entry into our backend database right now. There is no automation. We don't need it. And my customers are fine with that because I'm performing a service. And as long as I can perform the service to what their requirements are, I'm meeting my end of my SLA. So,
Right on.
and that's where I was all hung up on my MVP, 6 months ago. And I kept talking to more people, within, startups, and they're like, no, you get even more basic than that and just take that out and start building your revenue because, this is what you're doing. And just talking about it made me realize that. So that was a huge light bulb moment for me was when I realized that I have a basic website. It's a brochure site. It's there to get people to sign up. And then there's a whole portal behind it that people don't see until they sign up.
Yeah.
But once they sign up and then they get to see what the MVP looks like.
Yeah, it's not to say that you can't in the future get into the social network and the community and all those
absolutely.
things. But let's make some money now. Let's show investors we're willing to make money now. I don't need $2.5 million to build my MVP. It's viable now, and we got traction, and that's all you need.
Yep. And that's exactly where, I thought I was going to need 12 people to be working with me. I thought I was going to have this massive team and everything else. And, basically bootstrapped it with a fractional CTO that, I had to give a very small, equity stake to get him interested in it. And he did, part-time work at night, and on weekends, whenever he had some free time to help me. And then the minute that we got our funding, then we went out and we hired in the contractors to get the product up to speed. And we did more in the first 3 weeks than we planned on doing the first 2 months. And so that was just another, verification that you don't need to have this giant IT department building your products. If you have somebody that really knows what they're doing, and I meet more and more of those other founders that are like that, it just helps you stabilize your launch to where I can get to the revenue state, to where I have the money coming in, just like you said, with my traction. And then once I have the traction, then I turn it into repeatable. And that's when I start to scale. If I can turn this into a repeatable operation as Ken Gobble, then I can hire somebody and train them to go and replicate what I'm doing and then keep that momentum going. And that's how we're going to grow and scale the company.
Perfect. I love the approach. Let me ask you then about getting your first customer. We got founders here on this call that need to get their first customer. You are a salesperson. You help our community. Just full disclosure, Ken helps our community and helps founders identify their ICP, initial or ideal customer profile, what it means to go out there and do founder-led sales. That's what you're all about. And really, I think that speaks so loudly to investors saying, man, Ken's ready to go out there and hit the streets and start selling. What's your advice if a founder comes to you and says, I need my first customer? How are you talking to them? How are you advising them?
The number one problem I see with most founders is they automatically think that 10 million potential buyers immediately. And what they don't realize is that you just have to find one. Until you find that one person, that first buyer, everybody else is irrelevant because you have to find one person that wants to hand you their money to purchase whatever you're selling. Other 10 million, they're out there.
Sure.
But to actually access them, that's where a founder is going to think, well, I'm just going to have revenue start immediately. And even I knew that I'm a black belt in ICP. I'm a black belt. But I knew it was going to take me time to get my initial customer signed on. And it's something that I prepared myself for, knowing that I'm doing something so new. This is not me. I don't have a widget that I can sell somebody. I don't have a wonderful dog watering tool that's going to save me time when I go and when I'm at Central Park walking my dog to give them a little bit of water. No, I don't have it on a leash. I don't have that. I have Ken Gobble as a service. And then until somebody wants to pay for me to do what I do, it's that first person. And then once you have that first person, you ask them, why did you buy it?
Yeah.
And ask them, what did I do right? If you don't ask your initial customers, I'd love to use the scenario because Will's so big about talking about Uber. Imagine the first person that ever outside of the company, the first individual that actually got to take an Uber ride. They didn't have the app, they didn't know what it was, they didn't know anything about it. Somebody approached them and said, hey, we're building this fantastic app, it's a taxi and a phone and whatever. Would you like to be that first person? That person probably felt like they were, Chuck Norris, just like the biggest badass because they get to do something for the first time.
Sure.
Think about how important that is. And I coach founders to think about find that individual that's going to be excited to be your first.
Yeah.
Because they are a part of your story for the rest of your life. And if they were that first person, make them feel special because then other people are going to see how important they were to you and they're going to want that same feeling. And that's what turns it into a second and a third and a fourth person. But you've got to go out there and really find who needs me or needs my product more than anybody else. And that's what I help people kind of identify is maybe you can't get to them directly. Maybe you have a business to consumer product, but maybe you need to go through like a society that people have members. They have 10,000 members that are into watercolor painting, and you have the newest water refreshing tool for watercolor people. And you're going to go and you're going to say, I'm going to give 10 of these away to people so they can go and just give me a customer feedback on it. And for all of your people that come and buy it afterwards, I'll give you a 90% discount. You can get whatever discount you want. Maybe you have to almost give it away, but get them using it because that's your first customer. And if they fall in love with the product and will give you that endorsement, that's priceless. Because just like with investors, once you have the first investors, other people are going to want to be involved. It's the same thing in sales. When one person buys it, you have to create that desire for other people to want it as well. But you're not going to know why they bought it unless you ask them that question. So if you try to sell to somebody and they'd say no, ask them why.
Yeah.
What did I not do well enough to have you to buy my product? What did I have done differently? People are going to be so blown away that you care enough of their opinion on why they didn't spend the money. Maybe I just didn't have the money at the time, but you know what? Maybe in 30 days, I'll be your first buyer. I just didn't have the money right now. You never know unless you ask those questions. So, when it comes to ICP, you have got to rack your brain and yeah, you may have the 10 million, but you got to focus on where can I target first? Is there an organization? Is there a network? Can I ask a friend that maybe my friends can go out and find somebody that needs my product? It all depends on what you're selling. Is it a service? Is it a product? But by having people, like yourself and like myself that can actually kind of help a founder, just bring that noise down to something that is coherent. That's the biggest thing. And so like right now, I've got about 15 potential buyers for my first introductions and everything like that. But till I had a good enough product for my buying customer that doesn't pay a penny to me, I needed to make sure that they were comfortable with me going out and finding these solicitation, these vendors to come in so that I'm giving them the perfect match. And then the people, when I go and I hand them an opportunity to meet a buyer that buys their specific product that has a budget and everything else, it's going to be very easy for them to write that first check. And then once they hear about it, then they're going to want more of it. And then word's going to start getting around. But it's all about performing for my customer first. And then the buyers are going to come in.
One thing that you talked about, I think founders need to take away is finding that early adopter, that one individual who's tickled pink to be the first one to try it. For example, I'm an early adopter in certain things, but what I'm not an early adopter in is technology, which is really weird. Like I still have an iPhone 12. I just upgraded like a few months ago from the iPhone 10. What are they on? Like the 16 now? I'm not the early adopter. Don't try and sell me on your first iPhone. But other things that make my life easier, like software, if someone comes and tries it, like I try founder stuff all the time, if it makes sense for me because I'm an early adopter of technology. So if you can find that person, not only the person who has the problem, but the one who has that proclivity, the psychological proclivity to be an early adopter, they will then refer you to what we talk about in the innovation adoption curve, the first majority, the early majority, and then you got your late majority, and then your laggards. You're the innovator at the top. So everyone look this up, look up the innovation adoption curve, because where you are in that curve will help you identify the ICP, not just the people who have the problem, where they hang out, but you might hit 10,000 people who love doing watercolor with Ken's new fancy gizmo, but only maybe 6% of them are early adopters. You got to find out where they are. That's one of the secrets, and that's what you've been doing, Ken.
You just have to keep falling on your face until you find that person.
Yeah.
You utilize every resource in your power. And if you don't have the resources, if you're a founder that doesn't have a network, find a network first. Go
Mm.
and find other people that are in complementary businesses to what you do, and maybe find somebody that was successful, or maybe they weren't successful. Go and find that complementary person and ask them for advice, because the one thing that humans love to do is talk about themselves.
True.
And if you can get somebody talking about themselves, and the same thing goes for your initial buyers, you can have them tell you why they're going to buy your product. You just have to find those people that have the need, or whatever piece of drive people have for your product. Does it improve their life? Is it something that is a commodity? What is your product? You just have to understand your product, and then go, like you said, and target the people that need it. Because again, 10,000 people may be watercolorists, but most of them could be, maybe they're not into electronics, maybe they're Amish, and they don't want to do anything with electricity, and so they don't want a self-stirring thing. Well,
Sure.
you got to knock those people out. It's trial and error. So,
It's what nobody has a crystal ball, and
no.
I like it. Trial and error, stay resilient, keep at it. That's what you're coaching founders. My last question for you. This will be our last topic. Can you help founders with their sales? Like, you actually will go in and be a fractional salesperson. You've done that in the past. At what point in time should a founder consider bringing somebody on? Because I know founders are tempted. I don't like sales. They say, I'm technical. I don't like sales. And I say you got to learn to do founder-led sales. But at what point is it wise or unwise to bring someone like you on to help with fractional sales?
There's a difference between hiring a fractional CRO, VP of sales, whatever you want to call it. There's a difference between that and then getting somebody to help guide you through the process, to do consulting. I do both. I actually consult founders on how to do it themselves. There's nobody better at selling a product than the founder themselves.
True.
There's no better person. Whether
Amen.
they feel that they're not a salesperson or not, they just need to be coached into the form of, nobody knows your solution better than you. Whatever you're selling, nobody knows it better than you, because this is your baby. Nobody cares about it more. Until a founder can truly feel that they understand the message that they want somebody else to convey, never have somebody else come in and say, well, I can take your product to market better than you can.
Thank you.
You have to master that before you have somebody else try to sell it for you. Because remember, they don't have the passion like you. They don't have the knowledge like you. You're giving them 20%. It's the 80-20 rule. You know 100% of everything, but they're only going to really capture about 20% of the essence of what they're trying to sell. They're just going to go out there and put it into numbers. And that's where, if you don't have your stuff cleaned up, they're going to be giving bad messaging and you're going to fail. There's not a time limit. I would actually say go out and get your first, second, third, as many early customers as you can yourself. And if you need the coaching, invest in a VP of sales, or somebody that does sales consulting. Do not go to an online service that does email generation and all those other things, because again, till you get your message down, it's going to fall on deaf ears. Same thing with doing SEO type stuff. Until you have your messaging and everything done, you need somebody to help you. And that's why it's great for me, as a VP of sales or fractional sales. I also know fractional marketing people. You do not want to make a huge investment into a sales or marketing organization until you know exactly how you want your business to be taken into the market.
Yeah, because they'll burn your money trying to figure it out. Like, that's the reason they tell you,
That's
listen,
it.
you need 3 months commitment, and then we're going to roll that into 6 and 9 months to keep figuring it out. And after they fall on their face, after the first 2 months, they're going to say, yeah, no, we got good results. And you're going to feel the sunk cost fallacy come into play. And you're going to see a little tiny tweak. And sure, maybe things increase by 5%. You're going to think, oh, maybe I should stay on this. And they're going to keep bleeding you dry. But with what Ken's talking about, find someone who's going to help guide you through the process and figure it out yourself. But how about you get everything lined up and then hand it to someone to optimize it, because maybe they got more experience beyond you? That's what I would recommend. Right there with you, Ken. I could not have said it better myself. Don't do it until you have figured out yourself.
Yeah, until you are comfortable with taking that hat off completely, when you can actually not be a part of the sales process, is when you hire a full-time organization to support you. Because then you should have layers between you and the sales organization, where you can focus your time on the vision and the strategy of the company, because you've already put that all together. You mentioned that it's all about coaching first. It's better to have somebody coach you for 20 minutes
Yeah.
than it is to have somebody come in and you pay them $5,000 to do a week of sales activities. You're throwing money into a hole.
Hmm.
Until, if you're weak in trying to figure out your messaging, you find a specialist that will help coach you to discover it. But if you're asking somebody to do it for you, like you said, you have to have the baseline, and you can have somebody optimize it. 80% of the work needs to be done, and then they come in and put the 20% polish on top of it, and then you take it and you go and find the right fit person, because 99% of startups fail. And this is my own statistic, I'm guessing this, but I would say 99% of failures, when they go out and they hire their first salesperson to come in and run the organization, they didn't get the right person with the right fit on how they sell for your culture and for your goals.
Yes.
Because if you hire the wrong person that is toxic, you'll set yourself back by years, not by months, but by years, because you're going to have to clean up that mess that person produces for you. Hire somebody to help you choose the right fit of an individual. That's another service that I do. And I'm not trying to pitch that from my standpoint, but I'm telling you, you have somebody who is knowledgeable, that knows the right questions to ask these people during the interview process. Everybody gets burned by somebody that sees Oracle. Oh, you worked at Oracle, or you worked at Amazon, you worked at DoorDash.
Yeah.
Oh, then you must be a guru because you know everything. 90% of those people that graduate from the big name operations, Microsoft and so forth, they've learned name recognition gets them in the door.
True.
And then they go through the sales process that organization put together for them. And they can't even think on their own. They're basically an order taker. That's all that they are. But because they worked at those big organizations, they did tens of millions of dollars in revenue. They must know everything. Wrong. You find somebody that did a $0 to $1 million with a startup,
Yeah.
and that's the person that you hire, and you get their references and you validate that they actually did it from the founders that hired them before. And you build a relationship with that founder and learn from their mistakes and from their victories. So that's I mean, I would mic drop just off of that right there, is making sure you're hiring the right individual before you commit. Think about it. The first CRO is going to want equity, because they're coming into a new. I mean, you're going to give up equity. You're going to give up your name, your reputation. That is the biggest step that people they want to jump in because they want to get a salesperson out there selling for them. Oh, they're going to save us, our struggling company, because they know how to make sales and we don't. If you're struggling, you go find somebody to help coach you through your struggles, because it could be as simple as maybe you're just not doing the right sales process. Maybe you're a B2B and not a B2C. Maybe you chose the wrong client profile, or customer profile, and you need to revisit that. There's nothing wrong with that. Always be adapting to market to where it's going to tell you where to go.
Right on. Love the passion, love sharing, love hearing it all. Ken, I'm going to give you the last word here to share with us. You are building a platform that I believe founders at Startups.com are going to want, especially those B2B founders. Give us the pitch. I'm giving you the floor. And obviously, you've been so generous with everybody. So we're not doing this because we just want to put cash in Ken's pocket, but it's going to help Ken validate his product more. It's going to help us. Give us the pitch, Ken, on how we can participate with you in what you're building.
Let me first by prefacing that my focus is generally products is going to be north of about $50,000. This is going to be higher end, opportunities. But if you're building the next SaaS product that's going to make business easier for people, and you're needing others to go and be your first early adoption and stuff like that, if you actually come to Rapport, we're going to help coach you to go and find those organizations that actually want to meet startups, that want to be innovative. Come introduce yourself to me and let us kind of know where your visions are, where your strategies are, and stuff like that. And we'll help you go to market. But I'm trying to, or not me, my team. I have to talk about my team because I have a team now. My team is trying to make sure that we change commodity purchasing and transactional purchasing and make this to where you're building relationships. And if you come, to Rapport and you listen to us and let us help coach you into interacting with these buyers, we're going to help you. Now, that doesn't mean that, in a year or two, you don't come in on the buyer side as well, to where you go out and buy those technologies. We're going to help you find the right fit for that new sales process, that sales software, or whatever it may be that you're looking for. From a founder side, we're trying to take the lead generation. Instead of you paying for a list of names you're going to go and cold call, we're going to treat it more like a dating website. We're going to make sure that we find people that are looking for you, and we're going to get that introduction handled. Come out and we're going to be supportive of you, and we're going to help you find those initial people, but also we're going to help you scale your business. That's where we're really going to help you with the scaling. In between now and then, come to me in Startups, schedule a one-on-one with me, and I'm happy to talk you through and help you get those clients.
Thank you so much, Ken. I know this is so valuable. and you just sharing your experience there. We really appreciate you, appreciate what you're going to do and everything in the future. That's it for us. Thank you, Ken. Again, thanks for all the attendees. We are here every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We do pitch decks every Tuesday. We got multiple guests booked, and we're going to be doing special things on getting your business funding, figuring out how to do marketing makeovers for you. All that is coming. If you're part of the Startups.com community already, we appreciate you tremendously. If you're not, think about come checking us out, or leave a like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, social media thing. We appreciate you all. Once again, that's it for us. Everyone, have an amazing day. Thanks, Ken. Talk to you soon.